We are live.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this special joint session of the University City Council and the Third Ward Housing and Revitalization Task Force to order. And I'm assuming that clock's going to tick over to 6:30 here in just a second. I know that the purpose of tonight's session is to hear from two proposed consultants. Since I know that many of us honestly do not necessarily know each other and there's no votes to be taken this evening, it would still be good for us to everybody's got a microphone in front of them, and the protocol is when it's your turn, you just hit the button and your light comes on, and then you're done speaking, please take the light off. But if you could introduce yourself, and you're welcome to say anything you want to about yourself. You don't have to make it any more or any less than you would like. I will tell you that when the presentations are going on, if you would like to ask a question of the presenter, it's probably easier for you to hit your button so we can see that the green comes on up here, and then I can call you. And part of the reason we do that is actually because we don't know that we have a live audience out there. It could be a slow Thursday night for family entertainment, but literally that way, then they can sort of keep the mics going. And when you're not speaking, if the light is off, it allows the amplification to be a little bit better. So with that being said, prior to introducing Brooke, my name is Terry Crow. I serve as the mayor of University City, and I'm pleased to have all of you here this evening and look forward to the presentations. Alita, you want to pop next?
Yeah, I'm Alita Klein. I'm the Second Ward Council member.
Hold there.
Byron Price, Chair of the Third Ward Housing and Revitalization Task Force. Spent my whole adult life in U City, but I'm a son of the board for like that. And former city council.
Stacy Clay, current Third Ward councilman. I have the great privilege of sitting in the seat that this man once sat in. Glad to be here. Thank you for the task force for your work.
I'm Steve McMahon. I'm one of the First Ward council members.
Wayne Smotherson, Third Ward councilman.
Christina Dancy, co-chair of the Third Ward Housing and Revitalization Task Force, and I've been at University City about 10 years.
Mayela Zambrano. I've lived in U City for about 6 years now, and I'm a member of the Housing and Revitalization Task Force.
I'm Chris Flood on the Housing and Revitalization Task Force. I live in the First Ward and have for about 3 or 4 years. Can't remember.
John Mulligan, City Attorney.
Craig Hughes, Third Ward Traffic Commission member and member of the Housing Revitalization Task Force and life term U City resident.
Gregory Rose, City Manager.
Jeff Hales, council member from the First Ward.
Ariel Gardner, member of the Third Ward Revitalization Task Force.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I will now turn the program over to Deputy City Manager Brooke Smith. You're welcome to either one of our mics or go on up to the podium, and we will move the program forward.
Good evening. So I serve as the staff liaison for the Housing and Third Ward Revitalization Task Force. We started meeting either in May or June of last year, and it became evident pretty quickly that we could benefit from a consultant to provide structure to the task force and guide us through the planning process. So we did issue an RFP. We had 2 respondents. Beyond Housing is the first that will go today that will present. The second is Yard and Company, which will present virtually, hence the television. So I'll call up the team from Beyond Housing.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Chris Kramer. I'm President and CEO of Beyond Housing. I'm a lifetime resident of U City until I wound up getting married and leaving, but I grew up here, went to Jackson Park Elementary School, Brittany Woods Middle School, University High School, class of 1980. My mom, until about a year ago, lived on the corner of Jackson and Dartmouth. If anybody wants to buy that duplex, please let me know. Me and one 800 got jucked. Have got a great relationship. My mom's 50 years of stuff there. Took a minute to get it all out, but it's a beautiful duplex, so it's going to go on the market soon. In addition, in 1985, I did an internship here. I got my fine degree in urban studies. And my father, the engineer, asked me what I was going to do with that. And I said, I didn't know, Dad, but maybe I could do city management or something. So after I got my fine degree and couldn't really find a paying job, I came up here and worked with the then director of finance, Willie Norfleet, and did a whole bunch of stuff in City Hall. So I haven't been back in this room in a long, long time. So it's great to be here. So we're thrilled to present to you tonight. I brought some team members here with me, Ms. Jacqueline Belt, Ms. Makita Hill, and Ms. Deb Dunbar. We're going to give a kind of a quick overview of our submittal to you guys in terms of how we come to this work, what we think might work for the Third Ward revitalization plan, and be happy to answer any questions. Jacqueline is going to hand out a bit of a quick document that we're going to walk through relatively quickly here. To begin with, for those who don't know, Beyond Housing is a comprehensive community building organization. We've been around for over 40 years. I have been the executive director or president CEO for 30 years now. Not sure how that happened, but 30 years is accurate. We've done a lot of great work over the years, but we've evolved into this comprehensive community building organization that does the majority of our work just on your northern border in the boundaries of the Normandy Schools Collaborative, encompassing all of the now 23 communities there. Used to be 24. In a comprehensive community building effort for the last decade or so, we've been able to leverage over $175 million to bring to that community to build new homes for home ownership, build new homes to add to our rental portfolio. We've rehabbed over 1,200 existing owner-occupied homes all throughout those 24 communities, helping a lot of seniors with much needed physical upgrades from roofs to HVAC upgrades, plumbing, windows, the kinds of things that those seniors need to take care of their homes to make sure their homes stay in great shape and they can stay in their homes and stay in good health. We work closely with the Normandy Schools Collaborative. Today, we have over 15 staff people embedded in the schools. Our staff there is designed to support the kids and their families. We're not about teaching and learning. We're about supporting kids and families so the kids can access the education that Normandy has available to them. We have a college savings program. We run an after-school program, a summer program. We have community health workers on staff. We work real closely with 18 of those 23 mayors in those communities just north of here to help them work together, collaborate together, figure out again how they can wring out efficiencies and effectiveness in delivering services to their constituents. The submittal we have and gave to you is what we've learned over many years of trying to be in community, to live up to the methodology that we kind of bring to the table. Everybody has a document, I'll kind of walk you through a little bit about how we come to the work. So on the first page, it's a very simple notion. We call our work the fundamental underpinnings: ask, align, and act. Again, it's not too complicated, but we believe if you don't do it well, do it right, do it with respect and honor of those that you're working for and with, that this work can be successful. The phrase community engagement is bandied out a lot these days. It seems like everybody does community engagement, and we think there's ways to do it and better ways to do it. So for us, it's about really understanding how do you be in space, be in place, be in communication, create opportunities for constant dialogue with folks, to hear their voice, to hear their thoughts, to hear their perspectives, to give everybody in a specific place the opportunity to have their voice be heard. The align part, once you gather information about the hopes, dreams, aspirations of a community, then together, how do you align the right kinds of resources to address the things that they believe are important for the place that they call home? Again, whether that's in this case, some dollars for housing, it's dollars to support families. It's again, what is needed and necessary, what kind of programmatic elements are there to again improve the lives of the people that you're aiming to serve. That alignment is resources defined broadly from dollars to programs to other organizations to are the things they want from an economic development standpoint that they don't have access to. Again, we have a long history of trying to understand that and try to make some things happen for the community just north of here. So up on Page Avenue, we built a grocery store, a movie theater, a health facility, a food hall, and soon to be an arts facility. Again, all driven by the voice of the people in that community, listening to them in terms of what they think is important. So again, how do we line all the resources? And lastly, my favorite thing is act. Get the work done, because sometimes folks get tired of talking. And yet have somebody else new come to the community and, hey, we're here to ask you things. Folks get a little weary of that. So we need to get things done. If you go to the next page about ask, right, again, what we put in the proposal is the most recent community vision report we did for our community. It's a 20-for-1 community vision. And again, that was based upon a series of pretty robust and in-depth conversations with folks in community. Again, from over 1,500 individual interviews in community to, again, a whole lot of face-to-face work, a whole lot of door-to-door canvassing, a whole lot of community opportunities to bring voice to what folks believe is important for their life, for their community, for their children, for their block, for their family. Again, for us, it's about being comprehensive and again, bringing that a message to folks that this is about your community. It's about your life. You should drive what happens. Shouldn't be any well-intentioned outsider coming in to tell you what they think is appropriate. No, it's your voice. It's against your community. It's your home. On the next page, again, we just talk about the align part. Again, we've done a whole series of things as we think about comprehensive community development. We've done a lot of work with local police departments, from receiving several Department of Justice grants, again, to work on crime and public safety with the city of Wellston, with the city of Pagedale, and others. When it comes to kind of community and vibrancy, we helped put together a master land use and economic development plan for all 23 communities. Now, I'll just pause for a second to let you think about how do you get that many folks to agree on, here's what we're going to do together, right? We're going to have one master plan, because again, the communities just north of you, as you guys well know, are much smaller. And the combined population of all 23 is about the population of University City. So again, for us, it's about how do you, again, get people to get around a common message, a common goal, common aspirations, and align themselves together to, again, how can we move our community together forward in a collective fashion. And then lastly, we talk about our work in the schools, and clearly we were thrilled to have Dr. Sharonica Harden give us a letter of support for our application. Right now, we coordinate all the wraparound services for the kids in the Normandy School District. The kids there struggle mightily with the weight of poverty on their shoulders. 100% of the kids who go to Normandy receive free and reduced lunch, which means 100% of them, again, at some point in the school year, something's going to come up that's going to make their lives more complicated than hopefully it should be, and it impacts their ability to access, again, the educational opportunities that Normandy has. Again, we believe this notion of community strength and community stability directly affects the strength of the school district. And again, the 20-for-1 footprint is the boundaries of the Normandy Schools Collaborative. And that was an intentional geography, because we think, again, public education is important for our community. We again think that's where the kids are, and that's how the tax base is set. So again, the linkages between the work we think is really important for us to understand and always respect, that successful communities, everything is interrelated and interconnected, and it fits and works together. And then lastly, it's really this notion of we've been at this a long time. I've been at it a long time. And the reality is we've not seen any significant community level change, a little bit anywhere in the region, or quite frankly, across the country, in places where there's been a lot of poverty and some abandonment. And unless we think about doing the work differently, our fear is we know what the outcome is going to be. And it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the region, not good for local communities. Again, we believe if you address the challenges that communities face by listening to their voice, by aligning resources and understanding the connectivity between housing and education and health and jobs, and again, economic development, all those things are connected and tied together. And if we don't think about moving forward, making sure those are connected, we worry about what kind of success any community will have. And what does that mean for the longitudinal success of that community? That's the context of how we come to the work. And then I've asked Jacqueline to talk a little bit about kind of the underpinnings of our strategy, about how we think about the work. And after that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. I will tell you that Makita was going to give this presentation. This morning she woke up and she couldn't talk. So that was me faking it as best I could. So I hope I did Makita's work a little bit of justice. And I'll have Jacqueline talk a little bit and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Belt. I am our Director of Program Design and Development. Thank you for having us join you tonight. I'm using my phone for my comments. I haven't been at it for 30 years, so I can't riff like Chris. So bear with me as I go through these. So there again, thinking about ask, align, and act, how does that get realized? Of course, it's a methodology, but more broadly, how do we actually enact that in our programs and services? What does it look like on the ground? So bearing in mind the context of the 24-1 community, I'm just going to talk about how we realize that. So as was mentioned, we have a holistic approach in our offerings of programs and services, and we really try to design and deploy them in a way that responds again to those interconnected community needs. And then as Chris mentioned, a series of programs and services, the sheer breadth of our programming really demonstrates the complexity of the solutions that need to be driven. Our work seeks to impact all aspects of community well-being, again, housing, health, education, personal finance, economic development, urban forestry, as well as civic and community engagement. Fortunately, Ask, Align, Act allows us to hear and better understand the aspirations of the community, and that ask bit is part of our community engagement work. So we leverage our financial and programmatic resources, our partnerships, our experiences, and all to bring their vision to bear. There are several guiding documents that we use. So Ask, Align, and Act presents itself across different documents. So we've got the 24-1 community vision, which was mentioned. We also have the 24-1 master land use plan. And we also have our theory of change, and that is what is on the last page of the packet for those who can see. So because of that methodology of Ask, Align, Act, we're able to create and ground our work in our organizational theory of change. So you're looking at it now, and using the language of outcomes, we can read it from right to left. And it really articulates and aligns us toward clear and firm intentions to support the success of our efforts, because obviously the thing that we all want when it comes to community revitalization or community building is success. We want to see transformation. So as you're looking at that, those community level outcomes on that far right are outlined across a chain of transformation that we like to refer to. So from individuals to families, from families to communities, and then from communities to systems. So making sure that we're leveling up all the way from the individual to the more complex systemic level. I'll also point out that those community level outcomes are representative of long-term generational change. Nothing happens overnight, and things don't happen without partnership. So all of those things related guide the planning and the execution of our work. And those things can really only be done in partnership with residents, municipal leaders, and other community organizations. As you're looking at the theory of change, the things in the middle, the short and medium term outcomes reflect the changes that will directly be impacted by our programs and services. And we measure those impacts through program performance management and other evaluation processes. And I will wrap up just to note that, again, Ask, Align, Act allows us to create, develop, and live in our theory of change, which helps us to better understand our mission of creating a stronger, more equitable, and prosperous St. Louis once and for all. And it really allows us to fulfill our mission of strengthening individuals and families, transforming the physical environment through housing and economic development, and then creating change at the systems level. So that is all for me, and we are open to questions, thoughts, comments that you'd like to share.
Thank you to both of you for your presentation, and to anyone, this is kind of a first come, first serve. If you'll just hit your button and go forth with your question, please don't be shy. I would tell you, to all the members of the task force, I think the members of council would love to hear from you with your questions and concerns, because we kind of figure like you're far more deeper into the weeds on this than we are. And that's not to put the onus on anybody sitting at the table. But if there are questions, please hit the bottom of your microphone and move forth. And Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. What I'm actually looking at and just wondering, and I see all of the aspects of what Beyond Housing is doing. But one of the things that I want to say is that one of the problems that we've had with this, in reference to this task force, is that the things that they've had to decide on and determine have been broader than what should be. So what I would like to understand is that, you have the total price attached is $303,000. And I'm just wondering if, for instance, in your Beyond Housing theory of change, if the education aspect of this can be removed, does that change the price that you're charging University City? Or is there any meaning with the components of your theory? If they are removed or changed, does that change what your total price would be?
So the quick answer, no. But again, I think to the extent of, are we willing to negotiate price if that number doesn't work for what you were thinking? Again, for us, when we want to have the conversation, we think it's important to talk about all of those things together and make sure we're not isolating, oh, it's just a housing thing we're working on. Because again, our belief is if that's done, then that's going to miss many challenges are there, and again, doesn't respect kind of the interrelatedness of everything that fits together. So for us, we want to have this big conversation. We want to be in community space. Again, we want to build on the survey work that's already been done, and really, again, understand what's needed and necessary, and then together with community and with leaders of University City, determine where do we go and how do we have the kind of success that the residents of the Third Ward are looking for.
Well, I do understand that, but again, as I said, unless, so then this should become a three-way partnership between the University City government, Beyond Housing, and the school district. Because again, with things that you have in here in reference to students show up ready to learn and at school, education, wraparound services, coordinated family engagement, again, that's an aspect that was never really considered originally in reference to the problems that the Third Ward have had. And so again, my question is, if in fact some of these components are removed, does that change your price?
So when you look at the budget components, there's a couple of two FTEs that are focusing on community engagement, a number of support systems after that. Again, holding more community engagement events and activities. So again, none of that work in that budget is again in the schools. None of that that's in the budget again does anything else other than again gather the understanding from community to push again the desires, the interest, and then look for the resources to carry out what the community wants. So again, that budget doesn't have anybody going to be in the schools, doesn't have anything related to economic development. Again, that budget is really about, again, how does our organization work with residents, work with leaders about what's the need, what's the want, what are the desires, and collectively, how do we find the resources to make those things happen?
And I will clarify that is an internal document. That's our theory of change. So that is not our response to the Third Ward. That is just us sharing how we realize Ask-A-Line Act in our organization. So the things mentioned there are the things that we do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Please go ahead.
May I just ask a follow-up question about the two FTEs? Are those current employees, or would those be hired specifically?
Those would be hired for this particular project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a couple of questions on this.
Yes, sir. That was the theory of change. So you-
Could you briefly explain what is a housing stability specialist?
So again, the theory of change that's included in your packet is reflecting the work that Beyond Housing does. So as a landlord, because we do own housing stock, we offer our tenants, our residents supportive services. So one of our supports is a housing stability specialist, but they exist in our housing resource coordination department, and there are a host of other specialists along with that.
And family assessment.
The family assessment, again, similar to Ask, Align, Act, we're always asking before we align and act. And the family assessment is a tool, an instrument that we use called the self-sufficiency matrix. And that is to mine for family need before we provide services on the individual level.
And then asset equity funding and programming.
That is one of that, again, is another one of our programs. And it's also more of a framework that we use when we come to the work to make sure that we're developing asset equity. It's most realized in our Viking Advantage program, which is our college access and savings program.
I got three more.
Again, so what we gave you in the theory of changes is how we come to the work. Would we love to bring all of that to Third Ward? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Right now, the resources aren't there to do that. Would we love to do that? Yes. Do we think that could be successful? We absolutely do. So the question is, again, for us is there a partnership opportunity with us, with you guys, to think about, again, the Third Ward revitalization plan, and over time, can it grow into anything more based upon what the community wants and the resource provision we can hopefully with you bring to the table?
Then development of owner occupied housing.
Again, we do, for years, we've done a first-time home buyers program where we provide down payment assistance for folks looking to buy homes in all of St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and Jefferson County. 8 hours of financial advisement services, and then access to down payment assistance. And we'd love to bring that to University City. There are funds available to do that now through St. Louis County that we have access to, that we'd love to bring to University City.
And then the last one, homeowners have access to financial incentives.
You said homeowners have access to financial incentives. Again, that's twofold. Again, as I mentioned, we facilitated grant dollars to rehab over 1,200 owner occupied homes in the 24 footprint just north of the Third Ward. Those are grant dollars that go to, again, mostly seniors who've lived in their homes for a lot of years, and those dollars go in to take care of major building systems repairs. To again and reinvest in the homes, to reinvest in that place where those folks most likely raised their kids. Their kids are long gone, and now this is an investment, back into not only that family's most likely biggest asset to help again stabilize its value, but also help the rest of that community around it.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. And certainly thank you to Beyond Housing for the presentation. So if I'm understanding things correctly, there is a scope of work listed here for community engagement, development of a plan. That's one facet of what could happen. An additional facet could be some of the other things that former Councilman Price articulated. These are the potential value adds after the plan is developed, things that Beyond Housing could do. They may or may not necessarily materialize or be appropriate, but those are some of the other things that could be offered. And so, and the plan itself is comprehensive and may be beyond the scope of this task force, but it could serve as a roadmap for the city to pick up other pieces and move them forward, because I think we all recognize that this task force is not going to address every single thing that needs to be addressed within the Third Ward. It is just not. And so the city, there are other things that the city is going to have to do, separate and apart from the task force. And conceptually, this plan could provide a roadmap for those other things that the city will undoubtedly have to pick up on its own, with involvement from the community, but ultimately is their responsibility. Is that a fair interpretation?
Absolutely. I think what we're proposing is what we are advocating for, big picture. Again, you know, we would advocate for, don't isolate the housing piece of what makes a community strong and healthy. Just make sure it's connected to everything else. Again, your request was a little narrower than what we gave you. But again, we want to say, sure, we can, again, help you with the housing piece because we know how to do that. But we're going to advocate for a look at all the things that make up a healthy, vibrant, and strong community, and be sure that you realize the connectivity between all of that, whether we can do it immediately or not. Understand that they're connected, and together we'd be willing to be a partner to see if we can find the resources, to see where we can find those points of connection over time.
Okay, thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, I like to get a little bit deeper in the weeds. Two things that I'm looking at that I think our task force is want to look at, as well as Plan Commission that I'm on, is how I like to hear how a scenario of community engagement. That's a hard thing for the third ward, to get the community involved. And I want to hear, what have you done in the past to get community engagement? That's one question. The second is on how do you go about helping the clients look for extra revenue, like banks. We know that within our ward, we have homes that the banks sometimes don't want to extend funding because of the perceived value of the home, or we may want to work on some programs that may come up. How do you extend that money? Because the money that we have for this task force, or what we're looking at, it's not a lot.
Sure. So let's take the first one. From a community engagement perspective, what we've done in the past is a wide variety of different methodologies about how you get feedback and voice. Because again, everyone responds differently. The thing that has worked the best for us, and when we did those 1,500 individual interviews, is we hired folks from the community to be the interviewers. Right. So we worked on here's a series of questions, and let's have you be out in community, in spaces where people of that community are, and you interview them and you ask them the questions about aspirations, about dreams, about, you know, what are the problems, but more importantly, what are the solutions? Right. So it's not folks from outside the community, actually community residents will lead this conversation and ask their neighbors, ask the folks who live down the street. You know, again, this is our voice. And again, we'll do a modest bit of training in terms of, again, interviewing and surveying. But again, we found that to be the best methodology, right? Because again, it's neighbors talking to neighbors about the place that they call home, right? That's one, but we think that's one of the best ways to do it. Right. We've hired, I think we hired 8 to 10 folks from community and put them in coffee shops and put them all different places where there were community residents on a regular basis, asked them to go on their own blocks if they wanted to, not knock on doors, again, get voice of, and then we aggregated all of that information together. In addition to that, we'll clearly do all the traditional, we'll do town hall meetings, we'll do small group meetings, but again, everything is led by the voice of folks who live in the community. We would ask third ward residents to kind of lead the process where I'll be help facilitate. But again, it's not our community. So again, we would do that over and over again. And then at some point we will pause and say, okay, who haven't we heard from? Are we missing kids? Are we missing seniors? Are we missing renters, homeowners, business folks? Again, who's not been in this circle of conversations that we've had? And then go out intentionally and find those audiences and say, okay, we want to make sure we have your voice in this conversation, so we're not missing anybody. And when it comes to resources to do the housing work, so we've leveraged probably close to $13-14 million in grant funds. So you don't have to worry about banks or underwriters, right? Because that can be a challenge. We do think there are some banks in the region who will be more flexible in their underwriting in terms of, again, debt instruments. But again, the folks that we've served, by and large, aren't looking for debt. By and large, clearly some are fine with it. So again, we've been fortunate again to be able to secure grant dollars from a variety of different sources to bring them to bear and to bring them to the communities we've served. And we would envision over time, hoping to do that for the city of University City and the Third Ward as well.
When you talk about community engagement, is there a ballpark number of the depth you expect to have participate? If we've got, a third of our city lives in the Third Ward, but yeah, I think probably some of the folks in the other wards may want to participate as well. But is it conversations with or surveys or whatever with 500 people, 200, 1,000? Where's your sample size?
So look, in a perfect world, what we'd love to do, given it's a third of the community, so we're talking 13, 14,000 folks, give or take. We'd love to get 10% of that population, right? And that's a big number, but again, if community engagement is going to be legitimate, right, and we're hearing from folks, we want that number to be big. We want folks to have full confidence that their voice has been heard. And again, failure to do so, we think, will minimize, again, the power of what comes out at the end, the power of people believing in my voice was heard, and then rolling up their sleeves and hopefully being a part of again, whatever is decided to hear the next steps.
And then you'd mentioned the down payment assistance program with funds available from the county. And are you guys the gatekeeper for that, or is that available now and we just have not participated in it?
So it's available to individual residents. So the residents have to, again, there are some income eligibility requirements, but again, it's available to the residents who then come to our organization to go through 8 hours of financial advisement services, whether you do it online or in person, a one-on-one kind of credit review, and then find your house and work with an approved lender who's going to give you a 30-year fixed loan at a paper, which is again what's the conventional rate today, and then we will help that individual go to the closing table and make sure they're prepared to be a successful homeowner, not just at the closing, but 1 year, 3 years, 10 years down the road, so they're building their wealth and assets for themselves and for their family.
So the applicant though still ends up going through you folks at some point in
Correct.
time.
Correct.
We'll call it educational purposes or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question is, and maybe I missed this, but in your budget proposal, you've got a line item that says subcontractor 20,000, and then it has the number 1, and then I couldn't figure out where the number 1 took me. So is there a footnote that I missed, or is there?
Sure. Yeah. And I looked at that today too, Mayor, and it was probably a little confusing. That's a combination of two things. I mentioned hiring folks from community. Part of that is in that line. And in the event that we need any other data, again, research done, we want to have a little bit of money in the budget to do a little more data research, but a majority of that is to hire folks in community to do the surveying for us.
Chris.
Thank you for your presentation, and I am appreciative of the complexity of the work that you guys do, and how hard it is, and the depth of your capacity to do the programmatic work that you do. But I have to ask a sort of hypothetical question. If University City decides that what you're offering, as great as it is, might be just bigger than we can either afford or want at this point, would a plan that somebody else created be sufficient to attract Beyond Housing into University City to do some of the programmatic work that you are so good at?
I never say no to anything. So sure, we'd be willing to see what that plan is. And again, do we think it aligns with how we believe the work should be done, and be in conversation with whoever the appropriate parties are to that end.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. But I appreciate the breadth of your approach. I think I agree with it, I guess. But
thank you.
With this model, what do you anticipate the task force role with the 2 staff members? What would our role be in this process?
I guess I would view it as kind of the board of directors of sorts, right? Again, to keep liaisoning with the constant communication to help to help our organization, those two staff people, with the frame, and the guidance on direction, and, constant communication loop back and forth.
But the work itself wouldn't require the task force participation, or would it?
Well, again, I think, again, to the extent that the task force has capacity to maybe do some of the interviewing, yay. To help us with community gatherings, yay. To point us in the right direction about who we should talk to, who haven't we talked to give us the right context and background, absolutely it would not be, we'll see you in a couple of months, don't worry about it. No, the envision is, again, there's a relationship, right? Again, we believe in building trusting relationships. And as community leaders, again, we would have to be, side by side with you, again, doing the work, understanding the work, and again, being directed by you into that end.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I missed this here, but what would be like the timeline for not just for the work, but also for some of these things that I'm reading here in the components? It just seems like very long term. Would you still be involved from here to how long after the research done?
Yeah, no, that would certainly be our goal. I mean, some of it's going to be about resources, right? At the end of the day. So clearly our goal would not just to be, hey, here's the work, see you later, good luck, right? Our goal would be to stay here with you. Again, for us, we've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort on your northern border. We just feel like borders sometimes are things that we should just get rid of, right? So, where Pagedale and Veneta Park touch you city, magic doesn't happen one way or the other, right? Again, we're all one region, and we all got challenges that we have to work on together. So clearly, our goal is to take our model, our methodology, grow it, prove it in 24-1, where we spent a lot of time. Quite frankly, University City has a lot of resources and a lot of great assets that, quite frankly, the 24-1 community does not have. So again, we would love to, stay with you, work with you, and again, find the resources to, again, carry out whatever the community says is most important to them.
How
Okay.
long have you been working in the 24-1?
About a decade now.
Very quick question, and that is just to understand affordable quality homes. And I just want your description or definition of what that means. Because again, it could also mean low income. And again, that might not be what we're looking for, but if you could define what affordable quality homes means.
Well, for the purposes of your grant, what you want to do, what you want us to do for you, you guys can tell us what that means for you. Again, for us, affordable is, again, based upon that individual, what's affordable to them, right? So again, yes, some of the low income housing has some income restraints, has some other things. There is some economic realities that we face in the community we work in, that for instance, to build a new house, the economics does not work to be able to sell that new house unless you have a 6-figure subsidy to help make the sales price work. And that's not a real tenable situation, right? So to the extent that the community says, we believe we have enough rental housing or enough affordable housing defined in some certain ways, your community, not ours, right? Again, you give us direction on what you believe and what you want.
Anyone else? Okay, and then we're going to move forward to the other consultants if we can. Mr. McMahon.
Thank you. I'll try to be real quick. I was just trying to envision the plan and what it would look like. Does it be at the end of it, when it's you work with the task force and you've got the community input, is it going to have things that would look like charges to the city of, we need your help with this, changing a zoning ordinance, changing the infrastructure. We need the way people get through this ward would be better served this way. Those are kind of, I'm just throwing examples off the top of my head of things that would really fall in our bucket as a municipality. Then would there be a list of things that, because you're costing really broad net here, and I'm not arguing that those things aren't important. Would there be a list then? These are outside communities like the school district, your religious institutions. They could help us by doing this, and the city could help by doing X, Y, and Z with them. And then there might be a third bucket of, these are things that an organization like ours, or even another one, could do, and here's why. Is that kind of the structure I'm seeing, or
You
am I
can,
missing?
you can come help us right there, Mr. McMahon. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, we're going to hear voice, and again, where do responsibilities lie? Where will we go to address whatever that particular issue might be? So it's not all going to be dropped on City Hall's desk saying, there you go, take care of it. No, again, we'll again try to segment it in where the logical places to go to address whatever that particular issue may be. You're welcome.
Yeah, last question. I thought I knew what housing meant. But I don't know what that means, because I keep hearing this housing. I really don't know what that means. So to you, when somebody says we need to address housing, is that a physical structure? Or what is that?
So for us, we like the notion of home versus housing. Because we think, again, the home is the foundation where, everybody's success begins and ends. So for us, it's about, where do you call home, and what does that look like for you? It can be a physical space, the place you go home to every night, the kitchen table you talk to your family about your day, the pillow you had your laid on every night. Could be a single family home, could be a 2-family, could be a 4-family, could be something else, right? So for us, or it could be your entire block, your entire neighborhood. Again, everyone defines kind of home in a different way, but it should be a place that resonates with you, that drives you to wherever success may take you. I will tell you categorically, and I've said this many times, the city of University City and growing up in this community has made me who I am today. I would not be standing here if I didn't have the relationships and again, build who I am as a person because of living in this community, living at 7360 Dartmouth and growing up and again, having the childhood I had and having the friends I had and learning about, life and community. So again, for us, has a wide definition intentionally, with the goal being, how do we support folks and help them live their best possible lives? Appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Mayor, Council, Task Force. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And then Raja, you're in charge of the next step. Am I correct? Or how's this working? Okay.
Recording in progress.
Thank you.
Okay, we can see you guys. Just want to confirm that you can see and hear well. Yes, you should be able to see us and hear us, right?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Well, congratulations on whoever is doing your tech. It looks and sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure, are you guys going to share your presentation? Or do you want us to? We had it for backup, but we can share it if you want us to.
No, we would love to share it. We also sent over a video that we're probably going to show halfway through if that still works. And my only question was, do you want us to hit play on that or do you want to play that? Just let me know. Either works.
Okay. You should make sure that you can share your screen and then you guys can take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, I can share my screen. So I can go ahead and do that. Do you guys ready to get started?
Yes.
Were you able to hear the previous presentation to see the give and take during the Q&A, or were you not a part of that?
We were able to see and hear. Yep.
You were. Okay. Thank you. And I think the only limitation we have a bit of here is we have a tad bit of an echo, but other than that, I think we're probably good to go, and we will simply let you go forth. We're glad to have all of you folks joining us. As you know, you have you actually do have the entire city council and virtually the entire Third Ward Revitalization Task Force. So glad to have you with us this evening.
That is fantastic. If there's anything we can do about the echo, let me know. Hopefully it's not too bad. We do appreciate everybody taking the time tonight and appreciate you having us. We're very excited to have a discussion. We're even going to hit pause probably halfway through when we watch the video and create an opportunity for any questions in the middle. We don't want to just present to you. We want to talk with you about the problems you're trying to solve in the third ward. And please feel free to interrupt us at any time. We're totally open to that. And like I said, this is conversational as this can be. I think the better. We're just going to go ahead and get started. We'll start with introductions individually. I'll go ahead and go first. My name is Kevin Wright. I'm a principal and co-founder at Yard and Company. I'll talk about Yard in just a moment. My background, I guess, starting somewhat hyper-local. I'm originally from Missouri. I grew up in Springfield, Missouri. My wife's from St. Louis, so I'm back there quite often. And as you'll see or have seen, we're growing our presence in the Missouri region and doing more and more work in that direction because all of my wife and her family and my family are all still there. So it's always good to find reasons to get back to the area. I worked in journalism for about the first 10 years of my life, and you'll get a sense of that, I think, through our presentation, that storytelling and identifying community stories that are made up of the people of places is a big driver of my work and our work at Yard. I got a master's degree in urban planning at the University of Cincinnati, and subsequent to that ran a nonprofit community development corporation for about 7 years in the Walnut Hills neighborhood of Cincinnati, where we did about $80 million in mixed-use development along a particular corridor that consisted of affordable housing, market rate housing, and a lot of equitable outcomes came out of that with that neighborhood. And that led me to starting Yard and Company and taking what we've learned and going around the country and doing plans just like this one. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. I think I'll hand it off to Ed on the Yard team. He's based out of Tulsa to talk a little bit about himself.
Yes, hi, everyone. Appreciate your being here. Ed Sharp, again, based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. After a career in marketing and of all things web design and web development, I got into the city planning, urban design, and community development world. I was a city planner for the City of Tulsa Municipal Government for 6 years. I administered some zoning, including some design overlays in the city, did some work with zoning, historic buildings, et cetera. And then I left to run a Main Street program, an urban Main Street, about 2 miles east of downtown Tulsa, the Kendall Whittier neighborhood. And it was quite a neighborhood of a lot of poverty, a lot of disinvestment, a racially diverse neighborhood that when I started focusing on the commercial redevelopment of the neighborhood, the occupancy rate in the core of the commercial area was about 30%. And 6 years later, we had the occupancy up to 100%, no chains. It was all local entrepreneurial investment. Through a lot of events, we worked adjacent with a partner that did mixed income housing in the neighborhoods. So there was a multi-pronged approach to the overall redevelopment of the neighborhood. And I'm proud to say we were named a Great American Main Street Award winner by Main Street America in 2020. So that's basis of my background. And I think I will turn it over then to Adam.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you all for having us here tonight virtually. My name is Adam Rosa. I'm a principal with Collabo Planning. We are based in Chicago. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. And so I really, at an early age, I had an understanding of communities that were suffering kind of disinvestment and Rust Belt issues from an early onset, brought on by outside forces. So that led me into really wanting to work with communities and work with cities to make them better places to live. So I have about 20 years of experience. I graduated also from the University of Cincinnati, like Kevin, both Bearcats. Hope you don't hold that against us, but I spent the first 10 years of my career on the West Coast working in the Bay Area, which obviously is rapidly growing, lots of displacement issues and gentrification issues due to the enormous wealth that was coming into communities. And then I spent the last 10 years here in Chicago and working all over the Chicagoland area, but really nationally, from Flint, Michigan during the water crisis, all the way down to Brownsville, Texas, over the last couple of years, which is right on the US-Mexican border. And really, I have a real passion for working with underserved communities to help them unlock their potential. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Collabo and what we do, but that's me, and I'm really excited to be here with you all tonight.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks, Ed. So a bit about Yard & Company, and then I'll hand it back to Adam to talk about Collabo. Yard & Company, we often refer to ourselves as a boutique firm. We work nationally. We have about 10 people, and we'll walk through who some of those folks are and their multifaceted skill sets and what they can bring to the Third Ward. But we work from Florida out to Colorado and Virginia and up into the Rust Belt in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania and other places. Our core passion, which really began with my experience as a community development professional, and then my partners, who actually has a very different background than me, but it pairs very well. He's an architect, an urban designer, and master planner by trade. He's worked internationally. And what that's allowed us to do is bring really high quality, technical, specific master plans to neighborhoods like the Third Ward that map out in a very specific way how to create change, physical change in a short and long-term period. But also we're equally passionate about engagement and not just holding meetings and checking a box and making sure we talk to the right number of people, but actually meeting people where they are and treating engagement as an active exercise that pops up around the neighborhood, meets people on their own turf. We really believe that the days of asking people to come to our meetings at our times with our agenda is over, should be over. It still exists in our industry, but we try to avoid that because it's unfair, it's inequitable. Most people cannot attend meetings. They have other things to do in their life. And so we're very passionate about getting creative when it comes to interventions and engagement. You'll also hear us talk about looking for opportunities to test ideas as part of our planning process. That's really where the EXP comes up on the screen. We have this really talented design team, but we also have this group of people who can help build and test ideas during a planning process or after a planning process. One story I typically tell about my time in community development is that I reviewed several plans that existed for the neighborhood dating back to the 70s. And they all said a lot of the same things, but one thing they all said was to put a four-way stop at one intersection in the neighborhood. And it was 2011 at the time, and there was no four-way stop, even though it called for it in the 1974 plan and the 1986 plan. And so we put the four-way stop in. And that, I think that is engagement. I think it's a way to build trust and show people that we're not just here to put a planning document together and talk and have conversations. We're also here to really start to get to work. And so I would say kind of that's a good summary of who we are. We don't go after every RFP. We're choosy about who our partners are. You can see in the statement on the screen here that we're serious about solving problems. We like to go to places that have interesting, tough problems that need to be solved around urban design, planning, and revitalization. And that's why when the University City RFP came across our desk, we got very excited about this. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Adam.
Thank you, Kevin. So I was sitting in a hotel room, I think in February of 2020, about to launch my new company. And actually it was early March 2020. And all of a sudden the world changed. And I think that other things have changed overall in how we take an approach to this type of work and this type of planning effort. So I really wanted to create Collabo by thinking about what I had learned over the 18 or 19 years of my experience working primarily in underserved communities across the country, and really trying to kind of codify a new approach. And that approach is focused on two things. It's focused on going beyond traditional engagement into community empowerment. That's number one. And number two is going beyond traditional planning into action, which I think aligns very well with what Kevin was mentioning on his previous slide. So we've had the opportunity to work in communities all across the country. I've been lucky enough to serve as the planning coordinator on 12 what's called Choice Neighborhood Plans, which is HUD's place-based program to reinvestment and revitalization. I'm currently working on 4 of those projects, but the Choice Neighborhood Program is aligned with the goals of this effort, which is really talking about housing, obviously, but it's also talking about people and neighborhood and how these 3 legs of the stool hold up the community. So I've learned a lot through that process, and I'm really excited to kind of share some of the approaches that we've taken to kind of think outside of the box a little bit about how to do this work and to really get people engaged in creating better places for their families to live.
Great, thanks, Adam. So on the screen here is the leadership team of this project, the people you'll be seeing, on a more regular basis. Myself, I'll be the principal in charge on the yard side. Ed will be a project manager. You see Joe Nickel, my co-founder and principal. So you'll be working directly on the yard side with the co-founders of the company, the principals of the company. And really the same, it can be said about Collabo. You're gonna, with 2 boutique firms, we aren't able to hide, right? We're gonna be working face to face with you and directly with you this whole time, and not be handing it off to others. I think what we also want to emphasize on the yard and company side is that, and I'll talk more about this in a minute as well, but we have built a team that is comprehensive. We've been talking more about our firm as helping people go from the beginning of concepting of a master plan all the way through implementation. And so what does that mean? For us, that means we have urban designers and architects on staff. We have 3 former executive directors of nonprofit community development corporations, so real boots on the ground experience. We have, this may be surprising, but we have a videography team on staff because storytelling for us is such an important part of revitalizing a community, both to tell the story and go beyond perceptions of a community that may exist that are negative, and really highlight the culture that exists today, the positive things happening, and help that shape the next generation of change and story for that place. So we also have, a digital communications manager, an events and programming manager. And then you're not seeing double on the bottom right. Lane and Landon are twins, identical twins, and they're on our team, and they do a lot of our branding work. So we talk a lot at Yard about building movements, not just plans. And we'll consider our work with you a failure if we don't build onto the movement you've already created. And we think that goes beyond creating a plan document. That goes to creating an identity for the movement and the coalition that continues on after we're gone into creating real and positive change. This is the org chart that you saw in our proposal. We want to put this on the screen because we just want to emphasize that it's very important for us that we work hand in glove with you. In this case, the you being both the city and the task force. We will probably want to meet bi-weekly, if possible, to make sure we're staying on the same page. You know what we're up to, we know what you're up to. And then we also are in favor of forming a steering committee, if necessary, that meets on a less regular basis, but helps to connect us to neighbors, champion the process, look at our recommendations and tell us where we're going in the right direction versus the wrong direction. And then also you'll hear Adam talk about this in just a moment, but we are recommending a community ambassador team of paid residents. We have put a budget in for that. We recently did this in the West End neighborhood adjacent to you in St. Louis. It worked very well. It's created a entirely new group of leadership in the neighborhood that otherwise was not involved. And it really helps open doors that we can't open as folks who don't live in the Third Ward. It builds trust and really builds a groundswell of support that otherwise really couldn't exist. With that, I want to hand it off to Ed on our team to just walk through the overall phasing of the scope that we submitted to you all.
Great. So we typically engage in a three-step process whenever we work with a community, explore, test, and build. And of those three, the explore phase is far and away the most important. This is when we take a real deep dive into the community. We walk it, we meet with people, we walk every inch of it that we possibly can. But we really do a lot of listening to the community, and whether that is directly with residents, with stakeholders, through various forms of engagement. The idea is that we really want to hear what's happening on the ground, what the people in the community really are seeing, experiencing, what they're hoping for, what their ambitions are for themselves and their community. And that process is going to then really inform how we focus on the next two phases. The test phase, we are very big on action and not talk. Traditional planning is spend a lot of time working with people, getting their opinions, create a plan, and then nothing happens until something big comes up years later. We believe in testing and iterating a lot of different ideas, including some small scale activations in many cases that lead to testing solutions, maybe creating demand for a solution we didn't know was really right at hand. So once we go through various recommendations and alternatives, then we move into the build phase. And when we get to that phase, we're talking about a true revitalization document, with full sketches, highlighting development opportunities, full set of recommendations, an implementation matrix. We typically look at anywhere from a 12 to 36 month, very detailed implementation matrix to help further what the community is going to do in implementing this idea. So we're there from start to finish as far as really exploring what the community wants for itself and helping ensure that that's actually what happens in the end result.
Thanks, Ed. So I'm going to jump in here. So we've really centered our engagement and empowerment approach around this community ambassador program. And so we've dedicated about $30K in our budget to supporting this program, this effort going forward. And this is something that's been highly successful in many of the communities that we serve. The top three photos are from Fayetteville, North Carolina. This is a project that I'm wrapping up in the next couple of weeks, but we've been working in Fayetteville over a 2-year period to develop the Murchison Choice Neighborhood Transformation Plan. And early on in the process, we identified 5 community ambassadors from the neighborhood to become part of our team. And that included 2 residents from the public housing site, which was the target housing site of this entire effort. And so we worked with the residents and went through a very robust training program and community leadership program to help them really spread their wings and be able to become champions for the plan. And so they've been just incredible throughout the 2-year period. They've been recognized by the city for their work on the project. But one of the great things is that now that the plan is wrapping up, the dividends are paying off. A couple of the residents have taken on leadership positions on their neighborhood associations and block clubs. They've applied for a grant successfully applied for a grant for a neighborhood lighting initiative. And they've also applied and were successful in establishing a historic designation in their residential area. So it's not just about what happens during our process, but it's really what happens following the process as well. And on the lower 2 images are from Brownsville, Texas. And you can see how we work with the community ambassadors and do training in advance of every community meeting to make sure that they understand about the material that they're going to be really presenting and sharing. And the photo on the lower right is my favorite, because what you don't see in that frame is myself, Ed, or Kevin. There's no consultants. It's the community ambassador speaking with her neighbors about some different housing concepts and alternatives. And that's really the beauty of this program is being able as consultants to take a step back and letting the community step forward to represent the effort. So we are currently involved in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania on a housing strategy. It's a combination of quantitative and qualitative assessment of the housing market and coming up with specific recommendations. So as Kevin mentioned, we didn't want to have a series of kind of one-off community meetings in cafeterias and auditoriums. We really wanted to bring our process to the neighborhood and to the streets. So we developed a pop-up engagement method where we were able to go to 12 different locations over a 3-month period and hit all different elements of the community and ask them about housing priorities. And the way that we did it was we gave them 100,000 community bucks to spend on a variety of 8 different project initiatives. And that's an easy way for people to get their head around, okay, we have a limited amount of resources. Where do I want to put these in each bucket? And then at the end, we're able to kind of tabulate that information and come up with priorities. This pop-up effort was also really successful in getting people engaged in a larger community survey that they could either take on their phone or they could take in person on paper. We had over 3,500 people in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, take a housing survey in the middle of winter. So I was just kind of blown away by the success of the outreach. And all of that engagement is helping us now lead into developing specific strategies to deal with things like displacement and things like how do we open up the box for different housing types that are going to be acceptable for the community overall. So this is a kind of an approach that we hope to bring to University City to help gather feedback in a variety of different ways. So once we have that feedback, it's up to our team to really put it together in a compelling vision. You have to get folks excited. You can't just talk jargon about housing and revitalization. You need to really be able to get them really geared up about the positive change that can happen in the community. And we do that in a number of different ways. So we do that by really trying to illustrate what that change could look like. And then we also do it by identifying some early action projects that can happen in the short term to kind of build momentum and get beyond that planning stage and kind of get over some of that planning fatigue as well. So this is Easton, Pennsylvania, where we just wrapped up another revitalization plan. And in Easton, we looked at a number of different elements that dealt with the people, housing, and neighborhood portions. But what you can see here is that we've identified 3 key catalyst sites for change. And those catalyst sites are going to be new mixed income and mixed use developments that include single family housing all the way up to senior housing in a context that it also includes shopping and parks and open spaces for all to enjoy. We also identified smaller policy initiatives that have to deal with things like homeowner improvements and kind of smaller things that folks can do to kind of shift the tide of a neighborhood. We also have had in this particular project a deconversion initiative that looked at how do we start to shift rental housing, which was kind of an overwhelming element of this community, back towards a healthier balance of renter and home ownership housing. And we've seen how that's changed over time in University City over the last few years. And we'd love to talk to you more about some of those initiatives and how we can kind of create a healthier balance overall. The yellow boxes that you see, we worked in partnership with the Redevelopment Authority to do a model home program in the community that would provide first-time home buyer opportunities in specific sites that were currently vacant to kind of rebuild some of the missing teeth and some different blocks within the neighborhood. But none of this happens in a bubble. You can see the kind of the connective tissue of open space improvements, people projects, things like community gardens, commercial development enhancements that help to uplift the community as a whole and make it a neighborhood of choice. So that's the approach that we'd like to bring to University City and to the Third Ward.
Okay, great. And I think this is where we're going to show the video. So let me just unshare my screen and reshare it. if there's any audio issue as you all are listening to this, I guess just wave your hands around so I can see it. And
And just to tee this up while Kevin's
Good.
getting it going. So this is from the Murchison Choice Neighborhood Plan in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And again, this is exciting to me because I'm only in this video for about 5 seconds. Most of this video is our community ambassadors out really engaging with folks and helping to understand priorities in the neighborhood relating to housing, but also relating to developing a compelling vision for change in a historically underserved community.
All right, here we go.
The Murchison Choice Neighborhood Plan is moving.
Kevin, I think we just lost the sound when you muted.
Local neighbors have come together through community conversations to share their goals, objectives, and ideas with the planning team.
I like to see community centers, like a teacher center for our students. I'm a teacher, so I love to see that kids in this community can walk somewhere and get an education or get free tutoring.
Well, that's where you get the most bang for your dollars, that everyone can be themselves. A lot of these people I've known years growing up before I was the mayor, and they gave some really insightful information. And a lot of times that's the kind of grassroots information we need to make decisions in the city.
This feedback has led to the creation of 3 overall planning themes: a community of learning, growing green, and a historical and cultural community.
It's the heart of the city. So we're the first African-American schools was here. You know, this is literally like when I walk the land, I feel heritage. I feel like I belong, you know, so it's just so much rich history here that we got to preserve, you know, so, and it means so much to me just for that alone.
From these themes, working groups made up of over 135 local residents and partners met throughout early 2022 to define, prioritize, and detail strategies related to the topics of education and job training, history, equity and inclusion, housing and commercial development, safety and security, and transportation and open space.
I am incredibly impressed by this project. I was really happy to see all of the different aspects to it, that there's education, there's training and community development and housing and economics. And there's so many different aspects to it that I was really happy to see.
If that's your passion, then that's how you spend your money, okay?
Community ambassadors who recently completed a leadership training program have been hard at work spreading the news about potential changes and gathering support for planning goals.
And we will be focusing on the entire area of from North Bragg Boulevard all the way through Country Club.
Innovative tools such as the Murchison Choice Neighborhood Plan Coloring Book have been designed to help promote the rich history of the neighborhood while engaging new audiences.
They're starting from the bottom up. They're asking people who live here, the stakeholders, like us students at Fayetteville State University, people who live in the area, people who work in the area. They're getting the advice and thoughts of those people to guide what change they're going to make happen.
Larger events, such as Community Meeting 4, have provided opportunities for broader feedback on potential people and neighborhood projects for inclusion in the plan. Key strategies have begun to emerge based on community needs and preferences.
1, 2, 3.
Early action projects, including the design and installation of 19 Little Free Libraries, have brought a sense of positive change and excitement to the community while helping to set the stage for larger improvements ahead.
It's a tremendous opportunity for the city of Fayetteville to make an investment with federal and state resources to change a community. This could be a transformative thing. This is a great community. The spirit of the community is what's the greatest asset, and it just needs some resources. And I think between what the city has committed to doing and this federal grant, this can really change this area.
During the summer and fall of 2022, it will be all coming together through the creation of a transformation plan document. We need your help and support in making sure that this effort is a success
I feel like this is a great way to spring forward to the future of Murchison.
That a community is strengthened, that resources are available, services and goods are sold that the community needs within walking distance or within a short distance, and that our community thrives just as it used to do.
Please visit www.murchisonchoice.com for project updates, including upcoming community meetings and other ways to participate.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to watch it with us. I think we thought it was a good profile of the work that Adam mentioned and was a good way to see it in action. Before closing out here, I have a few more slides to walk through. I'm gonna do the 10 seconds of awkward silence here to see if anybody has any questions or if you want me to keep going to finish out the slides. Any thoughts or questions so far before we move on?
Are there any questions? Councilman Clay, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And help me if I'm not interpreting this correctly. Based on what I've read and what you presented here, it seems like your work focuses a lot on physical development. You know, what could be added in terms of grocery stores and other kinds of physical amenities. I'm not saying you don't address other things, but that seems to be a focus. I'm thinking of the process you go through, the test and the build section of your process. Is that a fair interpretation?
I think it is. I think on the Yarding Company side, we really focus, I would say, let's just make up a number, call it 85, 90% of our work is thinking through how to connect development, physical development, whether that be infrastructure, parks, buildings, retail, to the social needs of a neighborhood, or connecting it to the people of the neighborhood to make sure that it's reflective of who they are and that it's for them, that it's not happening to them. I think that's speaking from the Yarding Company side. I think Adam's team brings a lot of the other side of the coin now, so I'll let him jump in, but he's done a lot of choice neighborhood grants projects, and he kind of described those earlier, but those are very comprehensive. Those are meant to obviously create housing opportunities, but to create a lot of add-on services and opportunities to lift people out of poverty. Adam,
yeah, absolutely. So those projects, and we always see it through this lens that it's a holistic approach where we're thinking about education, economic development, health and safety, culture, etc. We also understand that we need to provide recommendations that can help inform local policy. And so I think part of this project is going to lead us down that path. There's going to be some kind of overall umbrella recommendations about how to move towards revitalization, whether it's housing or commercial development. And then there's going to be specific actions and specific catalyst opportunities that Kevin and Ed really are able to flesh out with the help of the community to spark positive change.
Two more quick things. So as it relates to Collabo's role, you would develop comprehensive recommendations. So let's just say one of those recommendations is, the third ward would benefit from participating in a first-time home buyer program and some sort of incentive program. Collabo would not be involved in administering or setting up any sort of program. They would make the recommendation that that's what should be done, and then the city, the task force, some combination would follow up to take the appropriate next steps. Am I understanding that correctly?
I would say we're about halfway in between. So while we wouldn't be administering the program, we would develop the specific action steps to allow you to move the program forward, and also identify key resources and partners to make it a success. Because we know that the task force isn't going to be able to do this alone. we need to help to form those partnerships and identify resources at the national, state, and local level that can be tapped for each particular strategy that comes out of this. So we would help to kind of bridge that gap.
And if I may, real
Go
quick,
ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. I have some slides here in a minute where I talk about our work in the West End in St. Louis. One thing we always do in our projects, though, is create what we call an implementation matrix, which we can actually, in conversation at some point here, pop up on the screen if you'd like to see it. And it's a 36-month, typically a 36-month implementation matrix. We break it down by quarter, and we assign roles and responsibilities and potential partners. So anything we recommend in the plan, we're actually going to map out in a timeline that lays out who on the university, city, or task force side should be leading the effort, who is the potential partner for, say, the facade program, where is the funding source, provide links. So handing that off to you to really understand who you should work with next, whether that is Adam or someone else, is really important for us when it comes to implementation.
I think one additional point on that. So we do provide the ability to help you successfully go after things like local and state grants. The example I showed in Easton, Pennsylvania, we helped them obtain a $1.5 million grant from Wells Fargo to do physical neighborhood improvements to the area that we were working in. We're also about to go on board as their grant writer to apply for a $50 million implementation grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development based on the plans that we helped them create. So it's a bit of a blurry line because we are so action oriented, and we're always looking to help to figure out how to acquire resources. And we know you have some funding coming from the recent development of the Costco. But we want to also help you leverage that. We want to be able to take that and apply it to the strategies that the community really wants to see come forward and help to double and triple that potential money that you have coming in to have a greater impact.
Final point, final question rather, is I think it's important that our community see those who are coming in and working with the Third Ward in particular are reflective of our community. So it sounds like one way you address that is through your community ambassador program. And I'm sure you've studied the demographics of our community, but it is the Third Ward in particular is predominantly African American. Can you talk about who from your organizations would be on the ground here actually doing the work over and above the community ambassadors?
Great question. Yes, and I'll speak for Yard, obviously, and Adam can jump in as well. My background, and I actually have some slides on it in a minute, I can walk through, of working as a community development director in the neighborhood of Walnut Hills. That was a neighborhood that was 80% African American. I also have an example from Memphis, uptown Memphis. And one thing I think, Wade, to answer the first part of the question, and Adam touched on this earlier, we've more and more embraced, at least internally, this phrase invisible planning. And what we mean by that is that and Adam kind of referenced this with him not being in the video, but at the end of the day, the way we judge ourselves, and we judged ourselves like this recently in the West End, is when the final plan is being presented to the community or to Planning Commission, that we don't present it at all. And we started thinking about that a few years ago because it's so important to it becoming implemented, which is so important to us, that it's not the Yard and Company plan, it's not Kevin Wright's plan, it's the neighborhood's plan. And so the more that we can be behind the curtain, providing the expertise and technical stuff that we can offer, that is useful. But finding creative ways to not be the person knocking on the door, not be the person leading the presentations and community meetings. That's how we measure ourselves when it comes to success in that department. And I think that you know, in a place like the Third Ward where development has happened to it instead of with it historically, I think it's also a solution to that where the residents can take control and they feel at the end of the day that when we leave, that they're ready to move on and own it and do the things that need to be done. In terms of your question on staffing, we have a pretty, like I said, a pretty tight team. The way that we approach the work, we have a principal in charge, which in this case would be me. And then we usually have 2 project managers, and Ed would be one of those. And then Daniela Beltran from our team would be another one. So on the trips that we've outlined, we would probably bring at least 3 people, maybe 4. And those folks would be on the ground in the neighborhood, working with the ambassadors to listen, and to do, not just to work with the ambassadors on resident engagement, but also to hold technical meetings with regional economic development institutions or with the city department heads or developers or, you know, whoever it might be, to really get an understanding of how people are thinking about the Third Ward from a growth perspective and really understanding who the players are that can help the residents move it forward.
Okay, are there any other questions? And it doesn't look like there are. So again, what I want to say is that I want to thank Yard and Company. I want to thank each of you, Adam, Kevin, and Ed, for your presentation, and really appreciated the information about your company. Again, we're going to, so what I want to say is, again, thank you guys, and I'll let our we're going to end this part of it, the presentation part. And again, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're
the
welcome.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Were there more slides? I'm sorry.
There were.
I'm sorry. I do
it's okay. I felt
because
like
I thought the last part said discussion. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you proceed. Thank you.
well, yeah, we cannot. It's up to you all. It's 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock Central. But yeah, we can walk through them real quick and see if there are any more questions on those. I think our halftime discussion point here was a little confusing. Apologize for that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So quickly, and I'll skip that one and go a little bit quick here. But I do think this is important to highlight a couple of projects that are pretty relevant to what you're attempting to do in University City. I mentioned this Uptown Memphis project that we worked on. Uptown Memphis is a historically disinvested, mostly African-American set of neighborhoods. It's actually 10 neighborhoods. And Memphis, a few years ago, created a TIF that was going to yield $95 million of investment over 14 years into the community. And our job was to create a plan, engage the community and create a plan for how to spend that money in the most equitable way that created real change. So we did create that plan. We did a lot of robust engagement. But one thing we did was we created a scorecard for the funding, which I can share as needed. And the couple of reasons for this. One was that the 10 neighborhoods of Memphis were not all at the same starting point. They were all different. Some had some investment happening and some were way behind when it came to investment. And so we didn't want to treat each neighborhood as if they were the same. So, you know, in a place like the Third Ward, you know, not every street is the same there. Not every block. Some might have more homeowners. Some might have more longtime owners. Some of them may be seeing new investment, either good or bad. And this scorecard basically thought about anti-displacement measures and the tools that the TIF could invest in to ensure that a place was growing, but not growing in a way that led to gentrification or displacement and was reflective of what the neighbors said that they wanted in the plan. I mentioned Walnut Hills, where I led a revitalization effort with the team in the neighborhood there. The project was led to over $80 million of mixed-use development, new construction, and historic rehab. A mixture of low-income housing, workforce housing, so a variety of affordable housing, but also a lot of market rate housing. And our work there really set a new tone for the market around market rate housing coming in, but also adding affordable housing and making sure we retained and reinvested in affordable housing. So it was really a mixed income strategy across the corridor. We also paid particular attention to recruiting Black-owned businesses, and we're really pleased with the outcomes there along that corridor. This image that I just passed is an activation. So we touched on this earlier, where we activated over the series of a couple of summers, actually, a series of alleyways for the neighborhood. And it became kind of a pocket park in the center of the neighborhood that really started to drive the story of the neighborhood to the development community and the investor community, and really shaped the type of investment and development that came into the neighborhood. So earlier when we talked about the potential of doing something that like this as part of the planning process or immediately after, I do think that is a good example of that. And lastly, we've talked a bit of our work next door to you, which is the WeCollab plan, which is for the plan for the West End and Visitation Park. So, while we aren't local to St. Louis, we have worked adjacent to you. We're pretty smart about University City, but we know enough to be dangerous, but we're not biased, and we're not entering University City with any biases around what's possible or what's not possible. Every time I come in for the West End work, I stay at the Moonrise Hotel, and I don't tell my West End friends, but I often take a right out the front door and walk into University City. But I want to just touch on the WeCollab plan because it's representative of a lot of what we've talked about today. We're big on, like I said, creating movements and coalitions, not just plans. So you can see in the upper right, the brand for the project that includes the faces of the neighborhood, and they could really see themselves in that and felt connected to that. Pop-up engagement with interactive maps around the neighborhood is the bottom right and left-hand image. When we do these pop-up engagement activities, we are very intentional about making sure they're interactive and fun, that they attract families and kids as well as seniors, and people have a chance to come and have fun, but then we always call it kind of tricky engagement. They came for the hula hoops that you see on the screen, but then we ask them a few questions and get their input. And so it's really a great way to meet people on their own turf and engage people who often are either left out or choose not to be a part of the process. On the engagement side, we talked a bit about this earlier with Adam, but we're really big on embracing digital and creating a project website that has interactive maps like the one you see here, which is a social pinpoint map, and also digital surveys, but equally understanding that technology isn't for everybody, and taking those same maps as you saw in a previous image and those same surveys and having hard copies that pop up around the neighborhood and people can fill out, even planting them at the local coffee shop or the local gas station or post office, so people can grab them and fill them out while they're doing that sort of thing. Lastly, I think this is very important to what the work that you're trying to embark on here. In the West End, we worked with the neighborhood residents to find 5 focus areas. And within those 5 focus areas, we got very specific about everything from street design, outdoor seating, public space, trails, retail, types of housing, building height, building massing. And we mapped those out from a development strategy standpoint over a 12 or a 0 to 2 year, 3 to 5 year, and 5 to 10 year horizon, showing how over time we could rebuild intersections and focus areas in the neighborhood. So you're probably familiar with the area. This is a 10-year outlook or 5 to 10 year outlook at the intersection of the Houdemotte Tracks and Union. Obviously, as many of you know, the Houdemotte Tracks is over time going to be reinvested in as a multimodal trail system, and thinking ahead on that with the West End community around how that will, well, today it's hard to see the Houdemotte Tracks as an asset in many cases. It will become a driver of investment and development. And so we worked through, on the left, building up 3D modeling of what could be built there, and on the bottom right, 10 years out illustrations showing marketing the sites for the development community, but also showing the community inspirational photos of what could be. This plan, this is my last slide. This plan is being adopted now. What's kind of exciting about this process of adoption is that we have been so focused with this plan that they're adopting not just the plan, but a new land use map and new zoning codes for the focus areas, all in one adoption process, which is the first time the city of St. Louis has ever done that. And this project also recently won the Congress for New Urbanism Charter Award, which is an international award for master planning. So we're very excited about the outcome just next door to you guys. And with that, we are done and ready for any additional discussion that might be on the table. Thank you for the time.
Any other questions? Looks like none. Okay, again, so I guess if that's it, again, thank you guys very much for your presentation.
I actually have a question for the task force. And, I don't want to have this go on too long, but we're really interested in how you see this particular process dovetailing with the city's comprehensive plan update process. As we know, these two things seem to be going on or could be going on concurrently, and just would love to get a little bit of insight on that.
Is that a task force question or is that a city manager question?
Yes.
This is Gregory Rose. I'm the city manager for University City. I think it will depend upon the plan that's actually developed. So we're going through the process of updating the comprehensive plan. We'll look at the various components within this plan that's developed and make sure that they marry up with what is being proposed for the comprehensive plan update as well. So there may be some overlay that will happen, but I see that as a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a cool opportunity for sure but also to make sure, maybe this is where Adam was going with it, but to ensure we don't run into engagement fatigue, make sure we're utilizing any data or engagement information you're gathering through that process. It could be very helpful.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to turn the meeting. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, I'll turn the meeting back over to you. And
I think that I certainly want to appreciate both of the firms that submitted their proposals. The next steps that we'll take is putting together an agenda item and making a recommendation for the mayor and council to consider. I would hope that the members of the task force will share your various perspectives on the proposals and the presentations with Deputy City Manager Brooks Smith, as well as certainly I know she'll be meeting with the chair, but that information will all be combined and make a final recommendation to the mayor and council, and who will ultimately decide the firm that they want to go with.
okay, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I don't want to throw a wrench in things, and so Byron or whoever hit me if I'm going down the wrong direction here. Is there a meeting of the task force? Well, let me ask this. Could this be a topic at the next Third Ward Revitalization Task Force meeting to discuss this? You all do your deliberations there based on that, and the input is necessary from the city. Then a recommendation comes. Is that okay? Is that that's what you're doing already?
I'm looking here at Deputy City Manager Brooks Smith. When are they scheduled to meet?
The next task force meeting is the 20th, which is a Monday.
So they will have an opportunity to talk as a group and then make a recommendation.
Okay, if that be all, I will actually say that I really appreciate the task force, every member of the task force being here tonight. And I also appreciate the council and City Manager Rose, our city attorney is here, and all the staff, and especially the city clerk, who's gotten and put all of this together. And I do appreciate their work, and also Deputy City Manager Brooks. So good evening, and I hope you all have a good rest of the night, and I hope that will adjourn this